And here we are. Steve, we did it. I'm so happy we managed to finally organize our conversation.
Great to be with you.
So last night I went to the cinema. I went to watch a movie. I watched Elvis. Have you seen Elvis?
I haven't movie yet, but I grew up really in the 1950s, and he was at the kind of the height of his stardom back then, and then then he started into the 60s. He kind of went into decline, but he's probably the main music icon in this country. I can't think of anybody who's maybe Frank Sinatra or Ella Fitzgerald, but he's right up at the.
You know what? I was really impressed by the movie. So many times we watch a movie or we see a photo, and nothing happened. And then you watch like a specific movie or you see a specific photo, and you really think, you really impact by that. And the movie, the movie is amazing. The actor is like insane. He really looks like Elvis with different accents based on Elvis' age. But it's the image that is so powerful. I'm really curious when you'll see it about your opinion, because it's incredible if you can get the right image to the spectator. Then the combination of music, of course, Elvis music, and the photography and everything combined is wow. It was really, really impressive. So yeah, it's the power of the visual communication. If you are like someone like you who is able to do it, is incredible.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of Elvis. He was a great entertainer. I would put him the same sort of level as Michael Jackson. Just kind of the most incredible entertainer of his generation.
How can you handle a godlike fame like that? That's the only, and you can't actually. He can't at the end like Michael Jackson. Is when you are so famous, it's so hard, because then you don't have a life. So it's very, I was really thinking a lot. But you were supposed to become a movie director, or is it fake news that I read somewhere?
Well, I studied filmmaking in college and university, and my ambition was really to make kind of documentary films. And I was into it about 2 years, and I realized that it was expensive. It took writing skills. It required a team of people. It was slow. There was a lot of pre-production, post-production. And then I sort of got familiar. I was introduced to still photography, and that seemed much more immediate, something that you could do, walk out your door and start to shoot immediately. No script, no pre-production. It was affordable. I could get a 100-roll film and shoot it for a month. Whereas with film, that same money would only be for like 4 minutes.
Right.
So, and I didn't have the writing skills. So many of the great directors also had writing skills. So I decided, I'm gonna do something that's more spontaneous, something that's going to allow me to travel and spend all my time behind the camera, and not in the editing room or in sort of working on the scripts and that sort of thing. So I went, and I wanted to travel. That was my great ambition from when I was like 16. Right. So I saved my money. I took my camera and some rolls of film, and I was gone. I was literally gone for the first trip. Was more than 2 years. I stayed out for 2 years and just was, I thought, this is, can I do this? Is this going to work? It just seemed kind of daunting. It seemed very difficult, because actually imagining kind of interesting pictures and interesting situations, and then actually being there and seeing that, oh man, this is a lot more difficult than I thought. And then, living in cheap hotels, taking the bus, sometimes buses, like an all-night bus, get on the bus at 10 o'clock at night, and I'd be on the bus until 2 o'clock the next afternoon with my camera bag on my lap the whole time. It was, it was, I mean, I was young and a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I don't know if I could do that today.
And I imagine, Steve, that the cameras were completely different. I mean, not like now that, you click, clink, 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 and you get like thousands of images, and then you can pick and cherry pick. It was still the film, right? You have to.
Yeah, it was film. It was, I was shooting Kodachrome color film, which was, you had to be exactly, you had the exact exposure. Otherwise, it was too dark or too light. So it was very unforgiving. And yeah, the cameras were mechanical. Everything was was manual focus and manual exposure. And so you had to kind of think quick, be very familiar with your equipment. But I did that for like 25 years.
Right.
And then with the advent of digital, which I've fully embraced, I think it's allows me so much more freedom and creative possibilities. And I can shoot, it's much more forgiving. I can shoot a much lower light. But, back in those film days, when it started to get dark, you were either on a tripod or you were kind of leaned up against the wall trying to be steady at a 15th of a second, which is, if things are moving, it's like impossible.
Yeah.
Or you can light it with strobes. And I never went that route. So, yeah.
Amazing. The different universe, but also it's interesting that you saw so many different moments. I mean, I remember I'm 50 years old this year, and I remember when the Polaroid came out, for instance. I remember my parents, saying, "Oh, there is the Polaroid," and was like they click and the photo came out, and everyone was like, "Wow, that's the future," So it's incredible.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of big technological changes. But I mean, fundamentally, for me, photography isn't any different than when I started back in 45 years ago. It'd still go out. You have to find the situation. You have to find the right light, the right composition, the right moment. There's all these variables which have to be right, and then make pictures which hopefully have some emotional component, something that's you're going to want to look at more than once, hopefully, and maybe learn something about the situation. So that's it's not a for every success there's 100 failures.
Absolutely.
Ratio.
I was curious, Steve, about the moment in time where you realized that maybe photography could have been a real job, not only a hobby or something that you were passionate about, you wanted to explore, you wanted to travel, but really you thought, this could be my real job. I mean, they will pay me to do this, because I know so many people, and they are passionate about photography. They're also good, but it never became professional, and not even like amazing photographers like yourself. So there was a moment, or it was just a combination of events?
I think it was gradual when I studied cinematography and then film, and I decided that there wasn't anything else that I had a passion for. And I decided that, whatever, I'm going to make this I want to make this work. Even if it kills me, I'm going to make this a success. I'm going to just do whatever it takes. I'm going to work as hard as I have to do this. And I want to travel. I want to make interesting pictures which inform and which are creative. But I'm just going to do it. If I have to work odd jobs. My first job out of university was actually waxing floors at the elementary school where I went. And it was so kind of embarrassing and humiliating because I needed a job. and I did it at night, and I'd photograph during the day. But I just, I thought I have to do whatever it takes to succeed at this thing. And I'm going to save all of my money, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to start to travel. And I'm just not going to come home until I feel like I've made great progress.
Right. It's interesting also the fact that photography, like video making, can be very expensive. I mean, I'm doing videos now on social media for 10 years, and I didn't know anything about videos. Like I came from television. I was hosting like for 7 years a television show in Italy on like Sky News. So I was used to like the big studios, everyone doing things for me. And when I started the video, I start to think, all right, how do I do a video? So I need a camera, but I don't know anything about cameras, lenses, lighting. I mean, I still don't know anything after 10 years. But, every time you change a lens, it's not cheap. And you still, and every time, the more that you study, more that you think, yeah, but I would like now maybe a 50mm lens. I would like that, and so when you are young, it's not so easy. How did you handle the let's say having the right tool also to make your job?
Well, I had two camera bodies, and I had four lenses. I had a kind of a wide angle, then I had the kind of the 50, the middle range, and then I had like a 200 and a 300. So I had I thought I had everything to cover whatever it was that I needed to photograph. And I just was very protective of that equipment. I was very careful, and I used those lenses and those bodies for years and years. It's very expensive. It's kind of even now it's more expensive. You can spend $10,000-$20,000 on kind of a starter kit. So, I mean, back then I had all of my equipment together was probably $3,000, and so I was, I think the camera then was less. It was about $210, very, very cheap, and that's all I could afford.
But again, on the other side, the probably mistake everyone does. I did it. I mean, for a long time, I thought, if I get a good camera, I'll get a good image. And it's not true at all. If you don't know how to use it, what you're looking for, it's very difficult. For me, it's still like lighting is something so difficult that I think how people can manage this, Yeah. So
I think in the end, if you study the history of photography and look at very successful photographers, Henri Cartier-Bresson, Avedon, Ansel Adams, Kertész, Margaret Burke-White, a lot of great women photographers, you'll find that they used a very narrow range of lenses. They'd use maybe 2 or maximum 3 lenses, and that was what they did most of their work with. So I think that it's really important. I always tell students, you have to know the history of photography. If you like pictures, if you love photography, you have to know what's gone before. The same way, if you love music, you got to listen to music. If you want to be a writer, you got to read. And as a photographer, you really have to know how great photographers handle light. If you want to be a portrait photographer, look at August Sander, look at Annie Leibovitz, look at Irving Penn, look at Avedon. See how they handle light. And it's a lot of trial and error. Go out and shoot 20,000 exposures. Shoot 50. Eventually you'll start through trial and error. You'll start to understand what's working and what doesn't, and why those pictures that they made were so great, because the light was wonderful, and the moment and framing and everything was just perfect. And so, yeah, I think studying, looking at photo books online, whatever, you got to know the work. I mean, you have to know the work of Irving Penn, one of the great photographers. He went around the world with his camera. Henri Cartier-Bresson, you got to know their work and how they solved some of these problems of light composition, and figuring things out, on the fly. So that's I think really important.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, very fascinating. I was wondering, you say you have to look, and I was wondering about this. If you one day you come to Brighton and we go around the city, you immediately will see something that, in your opinion, is maybe a great photography to take, and I will be there with you, and I'll see the same thing, and I'll think, I don't see anything. To me, it's like I can't visualize or imagine that could end up in a great photography. So I was wondering if you, after so many years, let's say, have you analyzed your thinking process and understood exactly what are your main guidelines that you adopt to decide that, all right, that's how I would like to get photography. These are the fundamental elements that I'm looking for to get a great photography.
Well, I think you have to start with great curiosity and engaging. So if we were in Brighton, I would, what part of the city, what part of the community is interesting? What would fascinate me? Where would I want to spend some time? And then I would think, okay, well, we'll go to this place, but then we'll find the right time. And then kind of walk around and get into sort of a zone of concentration. And you need to really, you have to be in a particular mindset, almost a kind of a meditation of walking around. And then, of course, drawing on perhaps knowing what other photography has taken place in Brighton. Who else has been there? What have they done? And then drawing on all these tens of thousands of pictures which have been filed away in my head. And then with all that sort of, information and background, and then go kind of look fresh and see what is it about this place that's unique? What's different about it? And then off you go, and you look around and try and have fun, try and be in the moment, try and let it happen naturally, not sort of force it. I think it's a mistake to kind of go out the door and think, oh my God, I gotta make some great pictures today. And put that kind of pressure. I think it's more about just relaxing and letting the world sort of come to you.
Got it. It sounds not too difficult described like that, but somehow it's really difficult.
Well, it's also based on years of practice and more practice. That old joke about how do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Right.
Guys asking for direction, they say practice, practice, practice. I think it's literally trial and error over, years, honing your skills, honing your visual skills, and knowing, it doesn't make sense to go to that place at noon, or this other place is not going to really, although it might be kind of interesting, it may be more of a words thing than a visual story. And that's based on literally years of experimenting and looking and trying and, that sort of thing.
I see. What kind of photography do you like the most? Because you experimented so much and you traveled so much and you did so many things. If you wake up in the morning these days, what do you like the most?
Well, I like portraiture. I like human face, how we're all different, yet it's all kind of a variation on the theme, and how we kind of present ourselves to the world. I'd like to be in situations where I can learn something new. That's why I sort of gravitated towards places like, Tibet and India and Afghanistan. Although I was just in Italy for a month in July, and I love Italy. I mean, it's just incredible place. But I want to learn something. I want to see something. I want to be at a place where I would want to be even without the camera. A place that I want to wander and have an experience apart from photography. So that's why I'm less. I don't gravitate towards photographing in my own town or near. I would rather. I kind of think of, well, I want to go back to Tibet and see
Right.
that. I want to go back to Burma and see the political changes that have taken place over the past year. I want to see that because I'm so familiar with the country and the culture and the political situation. I love Japan. So it's these kind of places that I kind of gravitate towards. Not so much say, oh, I want to go into sort of Westchester this afternoon and kind of wander the streets.
And then and take some pictures. Are you considering Ukraine when will be possible? I mean, you always have a message, and is this something that you are thinking about?
I think it's important to make a statement about a situation like that. However I do it, or whenever I do it, I think it's important. It's something which is so. It's the situation seems so simple, and you just can't believe how this can be happening in 2002. How can another country be doing these sort of horrific things? It's just so I think it's important to make a statement, make a contribution, to put yourself out there and try and make a difference in some way, however that is. So yeah, I want to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what will be the result of it. Will be very interesting. You mentioned portraits. I was curious about taking when you need to do a photography of celebrities, for instance. I was thinking again about the movie that I watched yesterday. I thought, wow, how difficult should have been to take a picture of Elvis, when you, or maybe not, I don't know. But sometimes I think these celebrities are so busy, they don't have time, they can be arrogant, or maybe you have, I don't know, the Queen or the Prime Minister of a country. So I was wondering about your experience with doing portraits, with very famous people, very successful people. How does it work?
Well, I prefer ordinary people on the street or their home. They're more unguarded. They're more, kind of not so familiar with photographers. When you photograph celebrities, it's very organized, it's very prepared, it's very scripted. You have a limited amount of time. They know how to perform in front of the camera. And there's some expectation that you're going to make them look good. And there's a bunch of handlers around to kind of make sure that happens. It's rare that you have that sort of intimate access with somebody and have the time to actually do something more impromptu, something more spontaneous. I almost never see it. It's always very produced in a studio, or you can see that it's there's lots of production values in it. So I don't gravitate towards. That's not something I've never really aspired to that. I got more interested in the kind of the ordinary man or woman on the street and how they're living their lives, whether it's somebody in the street in Cuba or Mumbai or New York City or Shanghai. I want to see real life and real people dressed in the way they actually look, and no makeup, and they are who they are. I always want to photograph people. I don't say, look this way, look that way, or smile or this. I want them to present themselves as they want, as they feel that's right for them. So that's why I don't really get too much in the celebrity portraiture game.
Interesting. So if the Queen Elizabeth says, "Steve, I want a picture from you," you say no.
No. I'll be there. I'll do the best job I can. But it's going to be a limited amount of time, and there's going to be, wardrobe and handlers and layers of security, and it's not going to be spontaneous. You're not going to get her. You're not going to ever get a day in the life of
Right.
Queen Elizabeth, her in an unguarded moment. It's going to be her in a particular look, in a particular background, and a particular expression. And she's the queen, and that's what you're dealing with when you photograph somebody like that, or the Pope.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Got it. Tell me about Italy, Steve. I'm curious about it because you have an exhibition that is called Cibo, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong. Cibo, like food, Cibo. And I was curious about it. How did you come up with the idea, and what is all about?
Well, I work with a wonderful colleague. Her name is Biba Giacchetti, who we've worked on many exhibitions. Her organization, her agency is called Sudes 57, and we've done exhibitions all over Europe. And she came up with the idea of of selecting out of my archive pictures of people, food, and how it's one thing that we all do. It's a kind of a common denominator of food production and families getting together. So this was the theme that she, I think, came up with, which I thought was brilliant, to show how this is one thing that we all do wherever we are in the world. The family dinners and people who produce, food and coffee and tea and corn and rice and chefs, and this whole world of food. I'm very happy to that she and this exhibition is now being presented. So I'm very proud of it.
And also, I saw, several books of yours. The most recent one, I think, is about children, Bambini del Mondo, again, that is the Italian translation, like it's about the children. And in general, I was curious about how do you approach books? Because on one side, I thought, well, I never did it like a book based on images, a lot of photographies. I'm curious about the right way to put everything together when you maybe have a lot of photographies you can choose from. How do you mix image description? What is the right sequence? How does the book idea start?
Well, during the pandemic, I have my daughter's 5 years old, so I've spent a lot of time in her world, and we were, during that shutdown period,
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time playing, and so I thought, and I photographed her, like every day, and I thought, why don't I go through my archive and see what I have in terms of just children I photographed over the last 40 years. So I started looking through and selecting pictures from every place, and I thought this is really interesting to show the commonality of children and how children are the same wherever they happen to be. They like to play, and they're kind of goofy, and they're cute and funny, and some children come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and so this mix of economic different parts of the world. And so how do they relate? How do the images relate to each other, and the activities in the schoolroom, at home, playing amongst themselves. And I thought this could be put everything together, could be a wonderful book. So I approached Mondadori, and we came up with with a selection. I worked with some editors and tried to come up with all the components for the book. I worked with a great designer, and it was great. It was fun to, sometimes you love a picture and somebody whose, opinion you respect says, well, let's maybe go another direction. And then you kind of reevaluate. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. But it's always a learning experience, and something which in the end, hopefully, it's a book that people will want to look at, and again, hopefully, it's a nice, interesting story about children around the world.
I imagine when your daughter will be older and she will show her pictures to friends, and usually you have these super ugly pictures taken by your parents, you know, when you were a kid, and she will have your amazing photography, like, and everyone will say, "Wow, who did take these pictures?" You know, my dad. You know, that's an unfair advantage, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I literally photograph her or make videos of her like every day. Often, believe it or not, with my cell phone. The quality is good enough, and the immediacy. Sometimes when you're in an intimate situation, it's much easier to use your smaller. So a lot of the pictures are with a cell phone. Now, I'm a big believer in cell phone pictures.
Yeah, what do you think about these smartphone pictures? Everyone take pictures with smartphones, and usually they are horrible, or not horrible. They are so perfect on filters, blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah.
They're all the same. They look all the same, and then you have it on the phone. I have millions of pictures that I don't know where they are. I will never ever remember about it. I'll lose it when I lose the. I mean, it's a weird word. I was curious about your opinion.
Well, I think that I don't use any of the filters or any of that, but I think it's an important way to sort of document your friends, your family. Hopefully, you'll be able to save those pictures, have them backed up on the cloud or whatever. So when you see a friend in 20 years, you can say, "Oh, remember that time we had lunch or dinner? We're at a party, and look how we looked back then." And we've always done that, but not to the same degree that we could do that now, because literally everybody now has a camera in their phone. 30 or 40 years ago, nobody would take a camera to a party or to a lunch. I mean, rarely would somebody say, "Okay, well, let's take a picture of us together at the table." I mean, never happened. So I think it's great to document our lives and our families. But for me, it's and again, it's more of a scrapbook or a sketchbook. I don't really plan. I think they could have the quality be in a book, but I see them as more just the kind of the history of my life, in maybe 8x10 prints, not a big print, just small. And I think it's I'm a big believer in that. I think it's great to go back and look at these little quirky, little spontaneous pictures that we made in the car, or in the bathtub, or reading here or there.
And you have all the memories. For my 50th birthday, my wife gave me as a present. She printed some of these, digital images. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. It's an amazing product, printing photography on a book, and I can see it instead of seeing the picture always on the phone. So the power is that the physical printing, it looks amazing when you see it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big believer in printing your best pictures, printing your favorite pictures, and putting them in a box, putting them in the closet, but actually literally printing the pictures on paper. Because as you said, some of these pictures end up on a hard drive or someplace, and they're just gone. Whereas, I mean, the family pictures, I had family pictures from, I don't know if it's 100 years ago, but definitely, 75 years ago, which I still have today, family pictures. So I think we got to print. You got to somehow put them in your desktop printer and actually make a physical print. Really, really important.
To have them there. Steve, to finish our conversation, what would you recommend to a person that is approaching the world of photography, would love to make a career out of it, and we are in 2022. And on one side, it's much easier than before because there is so much more information now available. On the other side, sometimes it looks so full. Everyone are able to take pictures, and sometimes someone could think, but is still a need for this? I mean, technology now doing everything automatically with these filters and everything. So what would be your best advice to someone asking for your suggestion?
Well, if it's somebody wanting to do photography as sort of a kind of a hobby, that's kind of one direction. If you want to make your living at it, be more of a, do it as a profession, that's kind of another thing. But let's say you wanted to make your living as a photographer. I think you have to find some part of the world of your experience that you love and that you would want to spend time photographing it, whether it's flowers or portraits or cars or whatever. So you find this sort of subject, and then you have to kind of learn and study, as I said before, really look at the history of that genre. And then it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of time. This isn't something that's going to happen in a few months or even a year or two. It's going to take a full-on commitment. It's going to take a lot of, years and years and years, but you're going to do it because you love it. And it's something that you don't want to do anything else. If you don't have that kind of level of commitment, then it's probably better to do something else and then to do photography just for fun on the weekends. But if you really want to do it as a kind of make a living and do it, then it's going to have to be time, discipline, and a lot of work. But make sure you're doing something that's self-fulfilling, that's satisfying, that you love. Now, there would be times when you have to take a job for the money. That we all do that.
Pay the bills.
And pay the bills, absolutely. But you never lose sight of your love, and you spend time. You protect that creative part of your life, and you don't let it go. You don't sell out and just become, shooting something that you don't really believe in. So that's my advice.
Love it. Steve, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. Congratulations for everything you do. And I really hope to be in touch, and I'll see you soon. Good luck for everything.
I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.